Okay, so I'm going to talk about support for NIH's new-ish data management and sharing policy, or DMS policy. So why we're doing this? Partly we want to comply with the DMS requirements, obviously. The idea is to ensure that data is reusable. We use standard data formats, rich metadata, standard methodologies or ontologies, and we want to upfront understand and budget for the required level of effort. Um, we so FaceBase itself has had a number of policies that are in sync for a long time with the NIH DMS plans. So we've been committed to fair data, which which aligns with pretty much all of this except for the oversight, which is more of a managerial thing that happens on the individual contributing projects end. But what we want to do is we want to understand the data types that are being shared on FaceBase. Our commitment is that we want to avoid requiring proprietary software or code to access data. Often this means that there are open standards. Other times there are sort of de facto standards if there's no actual open standard. We have some standards for data and metadata to make sure that the data is reusable and understandable. These are, data formats, data types, metadata ontology. We generate persistent unique identifiers, which we've talked about for a while. And then there was a question about how long data will be available, which I hope that we answered. And then we have policies for access, distribution, and reuse. I mean, our policies are basically that anything that does not have privacy concerns for subjects is going to eventually be open to anyone, eventually meaning after curation is complete and after any embargo period has expired. And then Alejandro has talked about our policies for the controlled access data. So this is all basically things that have been part of FaceBase for a while. And so if you sort of are aligned with these FaceBase considerations, then you will probably be already aligned with the DMS policies, except for things like you need to do planning in advance and set up a schedule and have oversight on your end. Okay, so this is kind of the work that goes into writing a DNS plan, and it's basically there is a lot of thinking and planning, and then there is a little bit of writing. So things that you need to think about is how often will you upload your data? We are encouraging uploads early and often, partly because it's just easier to find issues if you start small. Um, this actually, we do say you have to collect some data before it's approved for FaceBase. That's not really true anymore. We do ask you to let us know as soon as your project is approved if you put us in your DMS plan, and then we can start this process. Some other things to think about is how you'll manage your data before it's uploaded. And then any pre-processing that you'll need to do to, perhaps change from one data format to another or upload or translate from one ontology to another. And if you're doing pre-processing, will you make that software available on open source repositories or what will you do? So we have our own specific currently supported data types, file formats, and required metadata elements and ontologies that we use for those. If the sooner that you let us know if your data doesn't quite fit this model, the better. We're not particularly rigid, but we do want to not have multiple ontologies to express the same data, the same metadata. And we want to make sure that file formats are easily usable and standardized. So if you don't quite fit in with our already accepted file formats and metadata elements, we want to, work that out with you in advance. So I think we've talked about data issues and choosing FaceBase. Hopefully you know by now whether it's good for you or not. Um, and then I'm just going to kind of breeze through. We have some specific data types that we already accept. You've seen them earlier today. The data formats, we have, again, some specific ones that we support. I will have links to where those are later on in this. And then the minimum metadata requirements, we need protocols, we need species, developmental stage, and anatomy for biosamples, and then additional requirements depending on data types. And then we have additional optional metadata elements. If you have more elements than we already support, we will probably be very happy to accommodate those too. This is just a list of some of our ontologies, just to give you an idea of how many of these we support. I'm not going to go through these. We do add new ones when necessarily, but we try to avoid too much overlap. We want to make sure that the ontologies that you're using are a good fit, and that they're standardized and widely used. So we have a couple resources that are linked at the end of the slide. So then here are some things. When you're actually writing your data management and sharing plan, NIH has provided an example format. You don't need to use this, but I'm organizing this part of the talk according to that format. So places where we provide help are for the types and amounts of data shared. So we have some boilerplate text snippets, which are here that will say things that that you can just sort of cut and paste into your plan. And then we have, depending on the type of assay, we have additional text. And then we talk about the additional metadata elements that we collect, and some are required and some are not. So that's just kind of an example of the kind of boilerplate text and snippets that we provide. Let me get back to okay, I'm sorry. uh okay. All right. And again, specialized tools. You've seen some of our visualization tools. I think that you will later see our annotation tools for image data. But again, we have boilerplate text that describes all of that. Similarly, for the different standards that we support, we have text snippets that talk about data formats and metadata ontologies. We do persistent IDs for you, so that's something that you don't need to worry about at all. If you're writing your plan, you just copy our boilerplate text. And similarly for when and how long the data will be made available. And again, controlled access data. So we have our policies about sharing public and private protected human data. And again, we have some boilerplate text for what happens with the data and how it's shared once it hits FaceBase. Clearly, what happens before it hits FaceBase is something that you need to provide. And again, oversight and monitoring. We talk a bit about what we do at FaceBase to manage the data and manage access to it. But again, there's going to be some more information that you'll need to provide for that. That is basically it. So we have this writing a data management and sharing plan document, which I showed you a little bit of before. Key concepts for data contributors has a little bit more um, about the formats that we accept, the ontologies. Um, you've seen the diagram for what the data model looks like. That's there. Um, Sorry, this is the NIH general one. This is the face-based specific one. And then and you can always contact us at this help email address. We also have monthly office hours where you can just kind of drop in and ask us questions. And then once you have been funded, there is a request to submit your data to FaceBase form that we ask you to fill out. And you can also contact us at any point in the process. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to, no, at this point, I'm going uh, to pass this on to Alejandro, who's going to give a demonstration of how to actually submit data to FaceBase.